Homura Hime, a bright and colorful hack and slash that takes inspiration from Devil May Cry, and most importantly, NieR Automata. This caught the eye of Yoko Taro before this game's release, which I found interesting. Homura Hime was created by a small indie team from Taiwan, Crimson Dusk. Homura Hime started as a student project, but 6 years of development later, it was released March 4th, 2026. So, walk with me. I want to show you a peek into the world of exorcists, archdemons, and a whole lot of bullets. The Chura Kitten Temple. The first encounter is a few feet away, past the money deposits, and this large enemy that needs his privacy. In this fight room, the monsters of note in this first wave are the large one and the two that spawn with the blue barrier. The only way to break them is if you use your ranged attack, the blessed shots. Once broken, you can proceed as normal. The big guy only does a lot of damage when they hit you, but I don't get hit by him. The second wave has a new monster. Whenever the game shows its cutscene, this will be your first time fighting it. This ghost girl jumps through the floor, leaving trails of energy. She also shoots 3 beams at the same time, and she has a charge attack. She herself isn't too difficult to deal with alone, but it's a little bit more annoying when you have to deal with multiple monsters. Particularly with the bullet trail that she leaves, this can get more annoying if you're trying to fight other monsters. So you might end up taking her out first, if you want the battlefield to be a little bit less annoying to navigate. I myself get hit by some attacks, but it's nothing too serious. After the fight, there's a small, simple platforming section with a couple monsters that spawn. While this is easy, other non-combat zones will go on for a longer time. This will include parts in the next section, the Demonic Realm. Early on into this demonic realm, we get introduced to another monster, but they act more as a hazard. If those fish touch you, they explode and do damage. Honestly, these guys aren't really used in a way to really challenge the player, and I don't exactly remember if they ever do. They seem to be more annoying in combat, as opposed to platforming. As nothing really super exciting happens during this time, I'm gonna skip to the fight arena, as it does have an interesting enemy type. The turquoise Hex Doll. She will always be tethered to some enemies, and the player cannot defeat those enemies until they take her out first. Besides that, she herself doesn't really do much besides run away, which I have to say is kind of a shame. The second wave has the yellow Hex Doll. She uses a hammer to strike you and shoots 5 beams that close in on the player. 2 are yellow and 3 are red. It's best to go where the red is so you can parry it for points and repositioning with invincibility. There is a third Hex Doll, that's red, and she spawns bullets. That Hex Doll isn't a part of this level, however. The Demonic Realm section does go on for a bit longer, including a section where I have to chase a sleepyhead. I did find it amusing because of how she looks, but I want to make one more skip, and that is to the boss of this chapter, Lady Nazumi. Lady Nazumi frequently teleports to use ranged attacks, throwing spinning projectiles that you can parry. When she summons a single one, it will leave a trail of bullets that you cannot parry. Using the movement you get from parrying, you can close the distance, or you can play it safe and go back. She also has the ability to shoot 7 teal lasers, and afterwards she will shoot yellow bullets, which you have to dodge. Nazumi isn't restricted to ranged attacks, however, and she will strike you with her weapon. You are able to parry each strike. When her next phase begins, she will blast you with energy horizontally or vertically 5 times. On the 5th, she will spawn 2 spinning projectiles. Her attacks from the first phase will get stronger. Like when she shoots 7 lasers, she will also throw the 4 spinning projectiles. And then she has her special attack, which you need to dodge to the left or right, depending on where the opening is. But in my first playthrough, I definitely got hit by it. When her HP reaches 10%, she will open up her domain. Remember those enemies with the blue barrier? Well, she has a red one. You have to strike her with melee attacks because she's immune to bullets. Lady Nazumi was the first boss I had to hit 3 try button multiple times. I think she's a good skill check, mixing in the types of attacks that you have to defend against. I also found her interesting because even if she's high up, you can use her spinning projectiles to reach her if you parry them. But now, I want to explain how the game plays. So, how does Homura Hime control? Well, she has light and heavy attacks to go along with skills and blessed shots for offense. Certain combinations of light and heavy attacks can lead to specific combos. They can be good for starting air juggles, knocking back weak enemies, or simply doing massive damage. For skills, 4 of them can be equipped, and can be used at any time in the player's combo string. In order to use these skills, the player has to charge them in combat, whether it be attacking or parrying. All skills have different charge requirements. Blessed shots are used to tack on damage from a distance, and there are 3 different types of firing modes you can use. Those special combos, skills, more ammo, and even getting more HP can all be acquired at the store. The store is the main way for Homura Hime to get stronger. For defense, Homura Hime has parrying and dodging as an option. Parrying is the more important of the 2 options, as you'll be using this to negate damage from most attacks, and you can also move when you do a successful parry. All the attacks that you can parry will be highlighted in red, and occasionally you will be able to heal if you parry. All the attacks that you dodge will all be highlighted in yellow. And then the main method for healing in this game is through breaking specific pottery. Last but not least, Homura Hime will be able to unlock the ability to do an ultimate attack at some point during the story. Level progression in this game is linear. The areas consist of multiple sections that are connected through demon realms. Going off the beaten path will lead you to chests that can have money, or other rewards such as items like life and blessed crystal shards, which can increase your life or ammo count. Every level will introduce a new enemy type, and some will feature new mechanics like barriers. A few of those enemies will have domains where you will need to interact with them in a specific way, which will either be shooting while dodging or parrying. These levels will all end in bosses that will have multiple phases for you to fight, with the last one always being a domain. When all these gameplay elements came together, I found Homura Hime to be a solid game. My first impression of the gameplay was positive. The character controlled well and she was quick. Throughout the playthrough, I never felt like I couldn't react properly to the different situations. As I mentioned, when I fought Lady Nazumi, I got my butt kicked a few times when I first encountered her. While only 2 bosses did that to me, I did enjoy every single boss encounter, from the first to the last. They were all fantastic. The bullet hell gameplay elements really added to Homura Hime. This is where the bulk of the NieR Automata inspiration comes from. That and how the character holds her weapons when they aren't being used, but never mind that. You know, it is because of Homura Hime I got curious enough to play NieR Automata myself, just to experience the main source of inspiration. And yeah, I can definitely feel it. However, I will admit that I prefer how Homura Hime controls. Homura Hime never really goes into full-blown shmup territory like NieR Automata, but it does emulate everything it does on foot. The addition of giving the parry iframes and mobility makes dancing through the bullets super satisfying. There was an article that contained a discussion between Crimson Dusk and Yoko Taro, and I thought thought it was really cool to know that Yoko Taro loves the idea of people emulating his style. To quote him directly, "I personally see it as a form of respect or homage. That's why I actually prefer people to say that they were influenced by it, or even outright say that they copied it." Though he wasn't sure about how Square Enix feels about that kind of a statement. It's pretty cool that he feels that way about indie games taking inspiration from his work. Getting back to Homura Hime, I want to add that the non-combat sections were a nice change of pace. There were a good variety of them, my favorite of all of them being chasing the heads. Even if I did have fun with the combat, there were a few aspects that I believe could improve, and they both fall under the umbrella of smoothing out the gameplay flow. I noticed that there are weird breaks in the action. Now, it's easy to say, just speed up the gameplay, but how do you do that? You might see the footage or played Homura Hime yourself and feel that the gameplay is fast enough, but having moments where the tempo goes from fast to a complete halt is odd. And this clip that I'm showing is one of those examples. And this would include both enemies and bosses. Frankly, I'm not sure what can be done about the bosses. It seems like they might be there so the player can get some hits in. However, when we talk about enemies that have their domains, I feel like there can be a solution. If the fight arena has two enemies with a domain and they're both activated, there could be a mechanic where they combine their domains. That feature would lessen the waiting time, and that domain would be refreshing to the player as they would have something to figure out, you know, with the timing. Now I get that is easier said than done, so I would understand if they didn't do that at all. But that would be a way to make the game flow better in Homura Hime. Now about the presentation. Now, the presentation for Homura Hime is good. The overall anime-styled aesthetic for this game is clean and polished. I never felt any specific area or character looked ugly or off. I found myself liking the ice level in the final boss area, which obviously I wouldn't show. But there's also the scenario where the main character gets her ultimate attack, which I thought was done pretty well. The character designs on both sides, allies and enemies, were good across the board. Even Yoko Taro did like the character designs. Personally, I think the best part about the visuals are the effects on the attacks, cutscenes, and some of the enemy animations. I also liked how the second boss fights with a coffin, and the third boss, Lady Nazumi, did have a cool looking weapon. The thing is, I wanted the characters to be more expressive. A good example would be the heads that you have to chase. Each head has a distinct personality attached to them, which is easily visible by the 2D art, but the 3D visuals don't align with them. Making the 3D models match the 2D art would be the way to solve this. For the heads, I think it would be easier to do this, as they keep their look pretty stagnant. For both facial expressions and body motions for the main characters in the cutscenes might take a bit more time. Despite the dev team being, you know, a team, I am aware that they don't have an infinite amount of resources to go back and improve on these features. So I mean, hey, I do understand if they don't go back. On the other hand, we have the audio for the game, and frankly, it's just crisp. I like all the music in the game, the sound effects were great, and I love the final boss track. Obviously, again, I won't spoil that here, but I enjoyed it, all of it. I would say combined, both the visuals and audio are still above average. The story for Homura Hime was fine, but there was one thing that bothered me. Let me tell you the story setup before I get into what bothered me. In this world, strong emotions like desire can trigger immense power within. If those emotions go unchecked, they can corrupt oneself and create an archdemon. The Jingu were created and tasked with exorcising all the demons to save the world. Homura Hime is one of those exorcists. However, I will mention, this world isn't truly black and white. Honestly, I like the overarching plot line, even though I had a feeling as to the direction the plot was going. The character writing was good too, but I did find myself liking the interactions between the other characters rather than how the main duo interacted with each other. I just found the side characters to be more interesting. My favorite character interactions actually came from the shopkeep and the kitsune. As to what I had a bigger issue with, I'm going to have to give a spoiler warning before talking about it. So if you don't want to hear it, you might want to skip to here. I don't think knowing any of this will hamper the experience, but the option is there just in case. Now that the warning's out of the way, I get to talk about how the doppelganger was written Dark Homura Hime, and from here on out I'm actually going to be referring to her as Blue Hime. When the player first encounters Blue Hime, she is built up to be someone that can match the main character's power or be better than her. We are even forced to lose so we can get a power-up. However, there are other times when you have to fight Blue Hime, and that's in part 2 of the story. The thing is, I won, but the game treats it like I didn't stand a chance. Blue Hime never felt stronger than me, but the story said otherwise. This led to Ludonarrative dissonance. God, I cannot believe I had to use that term, but it's the only way I can describe it. If Blue Hime was saying that we lost as a way to mock the main duo, trying to gaslight them, I would find that funny. However, I don't think that tone would fit what's going on. Personally, in these situations, I would prefer to just lose. You know, instead of being told that I have to lose, or just, being forced to lose in a cutscene. But if you're gonna have to do it this way, why not give Blue Hime a parry domain, where the longer you stay in there, the more she switches between the attacks that you can and can't parry, and maybe you can give her a grab. Because if you play fighting games, grab always beats block. I think the situation would be a lot more interesting to find yourself in, where you think you can win, but you end up losing. I understand that I have an achievement for winning. Not everyone has this achievement, but even so, I don't feel much for getting it. Not to mention, the player doesn't get to have another battle with Blue Hime, which I found disappointing. All I wanted was to fight her one more time, where she might have a few new moves or strategies that I've never seen. I know it's weird for me to come out of this and still enjoy the game's story, or for that matter the entire game. I don't mind simple stories. There was just a lot I had to explain as to why I disliked the parts they did. On the contrary, the parts I did like, it was a lot easier to explain. Overall, I did enjoy my time with Homura Hime, but I felt like more could have been done to the gameplay and story, which I guess technically deals with the gameplay elements too. If those awkward pauses were reduced to create a better combat flow, and if a certain character was utilized a little bit better, the game would have left a stronger impression on me. I'll admit, I thought about how the combat could have been expanded upon outside of what I mentioned speaking about the domains, which would include adding another layer to the barriers by adding a monster that switches in between the two colors. This doesn't mean that the combat was bad, as I was feeling more than satisfied with the game feel. I just thought that the gameplay for Homura Hime could have gone just a little bit deeper. Not to mention, even if I felt like some of the character models could have been a little bit more expressive, the presentation was great, especially the audio design. Especially because I've been playing the music in the background the whole time. So if you're interested in playing Homura Hime, you can buy it on Steam for $24.99. If you've already played this hack and slash, I would recommend Geno Kids and Assault Spy, if you want to keep that anime style. A fair warning though, at the time of this video's release, the former is in early access. Anyway, that's it from me. Remember to like, comment, hype, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.